Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us across the fence. I'm Fran Stoddard. Vermont's local food economy has long been the envy of other parts of the country. Our infrastructure of farmers markets, farm stands, and community-supported agriculture may be how Vermont and the Northeast counter disruptions being felt in the sectors of large-scale agriculture and national food distribution. While there remains risk for Vermont farmers, there's also opportunity. The COVID-19 pandemic has spurred researchers and specialists at UVM Extension who work on local food systems to turn peril into possibility. Keith Silva spoke with the director of the Tourism and Research Center about what farmers are doing to counter the crisis.
There's still a lot of uncertainty, and really, the farms are the ones taking the lead in terms of seeing where the questions are, seeing how they can pivot and address issues and get out in front. And here at UVM Extension, we're supporting them and providing the best information that's available. And of course, the Vermont Department of Tourism and Marketing and ACCD is very helpful in terms of connecting all kinds of businesses and especially farms with the resources and support that they need to get through this difficult time.
What challenges are farmers facing as they pivot from a business model where they were selling to restaurants, say, and now having to sell one-on-one to customers?
Some farms are able to adapt much more quickly and readily than others. For example, Shannon at Stratford Village Farm, they're a relatively small operation. They can quickly make a decision about closing the farm stand doors and deliveries or curbside pickup instead. They just have a couple of people to talk it through. They figure out the logistics themselves. They communicate with their customers by email, and they can make those changes. For other farms that have been relying on restaurant sales, for example, or other accounts that simply don't exist anymore, they need to do a lot more recreating, and it's much harder to pivot in those sense.
What resources does UVM Extension have to help farmers who are having to develop a new business model?
We have a few different teams working on different aspects.
Okay.
For example, the veg and berry team is calling all the growers that they work with and talking one-on-one about the best practices for food safety, and also how to adapt, and especially how to figure out how to sell their product if their usual ways of selling it are no longer available. We also have UVM Farm Viability that's available for one-on-one consultations. And then I'm working in the agritourism, direct sales, and e-commerce world, helping farmers connect with new markets. Some of them already have been doing it, but we're seeing a lot of new farms that hadn't really thought about it, hadn't really needed, hadn't been interested in selling through e-commerce that are suddenly saying, wait, maybe I should check this out.
What are you telling farmers who are thinking of opening an online store or changing how they've done business in the past?
One big piece of advice is you should look before you leap. There are farms that are able to respond very quickly and make changes, and it works out well. And some have more adaptable models and also have easier options. However, there are farms that are going to be able to continue to function more or less as they have been, and they don't need to panic and feel like they need to recreate everything. There's a lot of interest in food hubs, and I'll say that Shannon's farm, for example, is serving as something of a food hub for the town of Stratford. So different farms and potentially farmers markets and different avenues are stepping forward to play that aggregator distributor role, which takes a little bit of the burden off of farms. Not every farm has to develop their own e-commerce platform and do everything independently directly with customers, they may be able to team up or join up with an existing food hub that can help make that a little easier for them. We're seeing a lot of farms starting to work together and communities working together to support those kinds of collaborations that are better for the farms, and they make it easier for customers as well.
Are there opportunities for farmers during this pandemic as it pertains to Vermont's local food economy?
Oh, we've definitely seen an upsurge in CSA sales, orders from farm stands, and general interest in buying local. And it's really important to remember that local farms are stepping forward in a huge way. I mean, they're already busy this time of year where it's the start of the growing season.
Yep.
And now on top of that, they're coming up with new ways to connect and serve their customers. So, and also serving as farm hubs, as food hubs as well. Yeah. So I think we're seeing huge interest in local food, and the hope is that Vermont has already done so much in developing these sustainable, resilient food systems. This will take us even further down the road, and the hope is that when the grocery stores are open like regular, and the shelves are stocked once again, that all of the Vermonters here who have been so fortunate to benefit from these farms selling local and pivoting to address their needs will still be there to support the farms.
For more information about how UVM Extension is helping farmers and Vermonters in response to COVID-19, visit uvm.edu/extension. In rural areas, isolation is often a way of life. While there's a quiet dignity to living in out-of-the-way places, there's also the potential to feel cut off from one's community. Champlain Islanders for Developing Essential Resources, or CIDER, is a nonprofit that looks out for the needs of the elderly and people with disabilities living in Grand Isle County. Across the Fence's Marco Ayala spoke with the executive director of CIDER about the organization and how they continue to serve vulnerable Vermonters during the pandemic.
We're a community-based nonprofit organization serving Grand Isle County. We serve primarily older adults and people with disabilities, and our mission historically has been to help people continue to live independently here in an area where, as a rural, small towns, services and resources are pretty limited, especially if you aren't able to drive. So we provide things like transportation, senior meals. We build wheelchair ramps, we loan out equipment, we run all sorts of socialization programs, wellness programs. Now, obviously, every kind of group activity that we conduct has been temporarily, at least, postponed during this health crisis. And again, it's kind of ironic because in addition to providing access to services, we also provide socialization opportunities for people who are very often socially isolated. And here we are now having to promote and practice that very same thing.
Right, because we're kind of doing the opposite now.
We are, and Grand Isle County, I would note, is one of the older counties in Vermont, which is an older state to begin with.
Correct. So with the current situation that we're facing with COVID-19, what services is CIDER still providing?
Well, we're concentrating now on trying to bring people to essential medical appointments, and really there aren't very many appointments happening right at the moment, but we're still bringing people in on an individual basis using volunteers as well as our staff. And food. We are getting people to grocery stores, and we are delivering hot meals and frozen lunches to vulnerable seniors from the sandbar to the Canadian border.
So you're doing like really essential services.
Absolutely, yes.
That's great. So what is CIDER doing to protect your drivers and the people that they serve while still providing all the services to support the community?
Well, that's a challenge. If you're in a car bringing someone to an appointment, you're in a car for 45 minutes each way when you live up here. So gloves, masks, cleaning every surface possible. We are actually looking at retrofitting one of our larger vans with plastic around the bench seats to see whether or not we can sort of create little cubicles where we could carry, if we need to, up to 6 people to a grocery shopping appointment instead of one at a time. The other thing is that where we deliver the home delivered meals, we set the meal outside, knock on the door, step back a ways, so the person can come out and pick it up. We still want to have a chance to talk with them, do a wellness check, and see how things are going. But we're taking every precaution that we can because most of our volunteers and staff are seniors themselves.
And what is the biggest challenge that you're facing as a nonprofit during this pandemic, Robin?
Well, for us in particular, transportation makes up such a big part of our revenue and expenses that having that service cut by 90%, and that's where it is right now, very similar to other transit programs around the state. That takes out 60% or so of our monthly budget. So we're okay for a while, but financially, that's going to be a challenge long term to continue providing services.
Well, thank you for taking the time to talk to us, Robin, and to share what CIDER does with our Across the Fence viewers.
Thank you, and listen, we're all in it together, Marco.
Great. Stay healthy.
You too.
To learn more about CIDER, visit their website, cidervt.org. There you'll find out more about what they do and the services they provide. That's cidervt.org. And that's our program for today. Thanks for joining us across the fence. I'm Fran Stoddard. Stay well.